Hello friends, greetings from the floor. I'm gonna make an actual professional hat. Crafting with cocktails. Brim is an interesting beast. It is fabric that has kind of a plaster in it, so you can soak it in water and it becomes flexible and you can mold it over things. We're going to actually mold a hat. We just need a big square, essentially. Look at that square. It's martini time. I don't have vermouth, so I'm just gonna use triple sec. That was a lot. That's delicious. So we're going to covering this in saran wrap. Alright, you got your head form. You got it wrapped up. And we need Brim. Clog the sink somehow. Shot glass. Perfect fit. Let's get slimy so very fast. Now it's starting to become malleable. Now we're going to place this onto the head form. And I'm going to kind of stretch it so that we can try to get this all in one piece instead of having to have multiple pieces like the last hat that we made. Now that's gonna take a little while to dry. In the meantime, you can get yourself a beverage and a hairdryer and actually dry it out a lot faster that way. I nearly died. It's mostly dry. I'm just gonna let it dry for a little bit longer. It's actually pretty well stuck together on all the parts that overlap, and I love the quirky sort of shape that this has here. It has like a little nub thing. Trim this around the edge so that we can get it off the form. Ho-ho! Use an additional mirror and start drawing out where you want the actual, because I don't want this, you know, covering on my eyebrows. Get a marker. We'll see how that one works. Hello friends, welcome to Crafting with Cocktails, where I'm just making a sperm hat now. Now that I have the general shape that I want for this, start hand stitching all this stuff that I kind of glued together earlier so that it will not come undone while it's on top of my head at some sort of glamorous fashion event. One thing of note here, this is a little bit lumpy. Generally, you don't use tin foil for hat form. You use a big wooden block. So if you can make a wooden block hat form in whatever shape you want, more power to you. You will do a lot better than lumpy buckram. When we actually drape the fabric onto here, we're going to use the same method. I have the straight of grain going one way and the cross grain going another way. So we're just doing the bias from the very tip of this all the way to the front and then smoothing it all out from there, because the bias has a bit of a stretch to it, so it'll help with that curve. And that's how you make a hat. Yeah, stitching in and out. I'm not worrying about all the tiny details, because even though you're supposed to in hat making, I'm drinking right now. It's been trimmed, it's been stitched up. We're going to put a small piece of millinery wire along the entirety of this outer ring. I'm starting on that center back seam. You're supposed to hand stitch everything. For the sake of time, a little zigzag over all this. It's beautiful. Let's try that baby on. That is the stuff right there. Again, I look like a big old sperm. Drink to that. We need to pad out the piece that we have here. This is just some regular felt. It helps with the imperfections. And yet again, I'm just gonna stitch this directly onto the hat using the sewing machine. Get out of the way. Stitch it very flat so it doesn't make any sort of indent when I stitch the fashion fabric on the top of everything. And the most magical marshmallow. Trim all that excess off. I kind of did it differently on both halves of this because frankly, you shouldn't make hats when you're drinking martinis. I decided to switch things up again. Making the brim just real big this time. I don't want the small brim because then it'll look so very much like the Beauxbaton hat. I want to make my own thing by copying another thing. I definitely spilled half this martini on me. That's why you usually don't drink out of martini glasses. Let's cover this thing in wire and beverages. It's beautiful. Looks like the top of a pool table. Giving ourselves a basic template for where we need to cut it out. We're going to leave some seam allowance on the inside of that. Otherwise, you might cut a little too far in and then you won't be able to truly attach all the pieces together. And that would be ridiculous. Stitch that. You're just doing a zigzag stitch all the way around. Now I'm just putting little notches all the way around here so it can fit into the other pieces of the hat. Cut out the fashion fabric and start draping that on everything. Stitch up the back of this using the sewing machine, put it back on the form, and then use the sewing machine to stitch it into the hat itself. I also switched to wine because martinis are harder to make than wine. Let's see how this baby fits on here. I kind of like this. I think this will be super cute. There it is. Now just to stitch this thing all the way around. Hopefully it won't break my machine in the process. Maybe take some of these extra pins out because they're very, very pokey. We have a base. Fabulous! I have been skipping a couple steps and I just want to be very forward about that. Usually you're supposed to put a piece of bias tape around the edges to make sure that when you are stitching things, all the buckram will not poke through, the wire will be encased really well, and it will add additional structure to the hat itself. But I don't even know where my bias tape is right now, so I'm just drinking and having a jolly good time. Graphs. So I did something a little bit different here. I put both pieces on the same side, so I'm going to stitch them on the outside and then fold it inside out so that I won't have to do an extra seam on that outer edge. We're gonna turn everything inside out, hopefully. It's like I tried to invert a chip. I shall call this hat Pringles. I used a zigzag stitch around the entire edge of this. Pull it ever so slightly. The seam would lie right on that edge. This Pringles hat will be the best Pringles hat. Cut away some of this excess biz. Do another stitch so that it'll be also secure. Oh, hello. There we go. Got all the pins, holding it very securely into place. Hand stitch all of it. It's cute though. I like it. I'm going to be capturing every single layer in this as I go around so that it just looks real nice, you know? I would just zigzag all of this on if it weren't too thick to go through the sewing machine without breaking everything. I'll probably stitch on some sort of decorative bit on the outside. Always use a thicker thread for this. I have doubled up my thread. Now I'm gonna take out all these pins and hope nothing falls apart. A little tight on my ponytail, but check that out. Magic Ranger Rick. I feel kind of fancy right now. The majority, ooh. Trim out all this extra fabric. Fabulous. We need to make a lining for this. Since I have that general pattern, I'm just gonna make a rounded out form of that. Hand stitch it around the entire edge. Cool. Oh, God. I found a fabric. That will be a perfect lining for it. So I already pinned it in and I used a ton of pins so that I can use a slip stitch to put all of that in. After that step, you want to put a little headband in the inside of all of it. Oh my god, look at how fashion I am. It's like a real hat with real prospects. Then you just decorate it a little bit. I already put this glamorous bit on here. I just wanted it to be real earthy looking. There you have it. I just wrapped it around. You can stitch down if you want, but who has time for that? I have drinking to do. Oh my god, I'm a goddamn wizard. Check that shit out. I look so fashion. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Crafting with Cocktails. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join me for every adventure into hat making, sewing, what have you. I have a website called The Craft Wizards if you want to see all the details of how I made this amazing little hat, as well as links to purchase stuff so you can make a hat similar to this. That's all I got, so I'll see you guys next time. Wink!